what's happening out in the real world.
All right.
And we'll keep this for long term, so as much as we can engage the audience as good as possible.
Check 1, 2, here's my audio. I'll be at about this level. Give you some plosives out in the P sound to make sure that they're real good. Okay.
We're good? Not quite so loud. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Had good traffic for the last 2 hours. Good.
Yeah, that's good.
You guys can be ready to go? Yep. Oh, I just got the Facebook notification. JB&A is live
You're
now.
live now. All right.
And my phone could tell me. All right, going through the roll-in. What is your official title right now?
IT strategy.
IT strategy.
Director.
Director, right? Yeah, you got to get that part. That's important.
Senior director, we really want to get that.
Oh, I do want to get that. This is the show for it. All right, here we are. We're live at NAB, well, our pre-event. This is the JB&A Pre-NAB event, and this is a Techsplanation episode with a special guest today, Mr. Will Waters, Senior Director. I got it right.
You got it right.
I got it right.
You got
Senior
right,
Director of IP Workflow, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
this is cool. So, what does that mean?
It really means that, we're in this transition in media and entertainment. Broadcast really going from baseband over to IP, and NewTek is a big part of that. And so a lot of workflows, putting that together, how to utilize the technology, utilize the products. There's a strategy that goes along with that, and I'm right in the middle of it. So I get to work with our professional services team, our product development team, of course, sales and marketing, but really to get that out and really to find solutions for customers.
Okay, so our big agenda tonight is talk about what's new, talk about what's old, and talk about how you use it in a real world and how you deploy it and kind of what to think about into, in designing an IP-based workflow.
Sure.
And yours is different because it doesn't require such heavy infrastructure, say, as a SMPTE workflow. But I guess that takes us right into the new announcements, which is you guys now support a SMPTE-based workflow.
We do. NewTek's really, the way that we see all of this transition, everything, the future of video is going to be on computing. And it really is today, but you have the ability to do your productions, to tell your story in any way that you need to, but it's going to be in the things that we're all interacting with. And so NewTek is leading that way as far as being able to develop and put out IP technologies that you can do video production with. So let's talk about SMPTE for a second. Sure, we have NDI, but SMPTE is in that it's moving in transitioning into the IP space. And we have customers that look for some of those things that SMPTE is providing in that 2110 standard. So NewTek has announced, and we will be showing some things with the IP showcase right here on the show floor at NAB, what we call the NC1IO IP, the Studio IP module.
NC1IO.
Yeah, a lot of little things there, but it's IO really. It's the ability to take any of our live production systems and make them 2110 compatible. Like if that's the choice that you're having in your facility, you can have all of your inputs and your destinations, working in a 2110 environment.
And there's not a lot of switchers out there right now that support 2110.
Exactly.
I think there's two?
So, being able to have that live production system, of course, NewTek is all about integrated production systems, kind of bringing all that value together for those storytellers. Having the ability to interface there, you can certainly do that.
So this NC1IO, is it input only for 2110?
No, you have 4 channels and they're bidirectional. Nice. So you can choose, going in, coming out, and then what's beautiful about IP is that you can set that up so that it's distributed and basically make the choices that you need for your production workflow.
Yeah.
Stack them together, distribute them out across your network, really wherever you need it.
Now that is the beauty of IP. We were discussing this earlier, the flexibility and interoperability of building a network that supports video over IP is that you only have to really do it once because it will scale, it will grow as your environment grows.
Well, yes, and that's part of what the advantages are. But we don't want to just do things because we moved to IP and just for the sake of it. Yeah, you get cost benefits of having everything in the facility on the same type of infrastructure, the same management. But let's be honest, it's a little boring when it comes down to just talking about it. It's all benefits you get. What you really have is a way to tell a story in a new and different way. You're not limited by those discrete video transports that it's kind of like the fish in water. Like fish doesn't know it's breathing water, if you will. We don't know we're breathing the air, but you don't think about it until you say, okay, yeah, this is actually affecting my story. I have only 3 cameras because that's really the space that I have, and the distance of the cabling, or only so far in the facility because of things like how far am I from my core routing. Different things like that. IP actually expands that out and really makes it distributed in a way that really storytellers have never had the option for before.
Well, it's that story. It's the guy who wants to film an interview in the CEO's office.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I can't run a cable in there. So how do I then broadcast from there?
The likelihood that the network is already there is
pretty strong.
Exactly.
Because I'm sure he gets his emails somehow, right? That's good. So 2110 is a big deal, though, and there's been this, NewTek's going to have their own sideshow going on with NDI. Now what we're saying is you don't have to. You can now build a bridge between the two of these systems. Yeah. Ingest and push right in and out of a standard SMPTE system.
You can, and some people kind of look at that as islands. You're think, well, you're making gateways and you're doing all this, and there is some, there is some, I guess, legitimacy to that statement. But really, when it comes down to it, and you have to think about IP different. It's different than baseband. It's different than SDI because we've already standardized. If you think about it, the whole industry is like, okay, IP is where we're moving to. So whether that's on that copper cable or if it's fiber or what have you, you can do multiple signal types across the same type of infrastructure. And that's where the benefit is, because as new technologies develop, new ways for telling those stories develop, you can utilize that same type of infrastructure to be able to adapt, not having to completely pull things out and put them back in.
Or build on top of it.
Exactly, exactly.
We worked at Yahoo years ago, and I remember there was a composite matrix, there was an SD-SDI matrix, then an HD-SDI matrix, and I couldn't imagine them thinking about, well, do we put a 4K one in? Do we do an HDR one? You can't build like that.
Well, not only can you build like that, how do you interface with that from a content standpoint? Oh, let me go use the 4K room. Well, what if that's booked up? Different things. We don't really think about how it boxes us in from a creation standpoint.
Amazing. Okay, so what other new announcements? As I thought there was at least one more, right?
Well, there's a few things that we have, but something else we've been kind of talking about with this IP workflow, or in the move with 2110, but we also have some great work that we're doing with Cisco and with VizRT, where we'll be talking about our IP series product fully virtualized.
Nice.
So live production system, first one of any production switcher that is fully in a virtualized environment.
I gotta sit on that for a second. So, a switcher that's been virtualized, it's already IP based, so it has no head effectively. There's no I/O panels anywhere. There's no matrix. It's now the processing power is across the network, so I can go anywhere and open up a GUI, and there's my switcher.
You have it exactly right.
So I can run it from the control room. I can run it from another room. The I/O, not the I/O panels, but the multi-viewer is now virtual as well, I assume.
Well, I mean, we've been doing that for a while with NDI, and they are being able to move things across the network to be able to bring really the necessary video to wherever the production needs it. So having that now available from the standpoint of the switching, again, if we think about the fact that we don't usually think about when we architect our systems, we think of a core switching, you have your studio, it's going to flow into some type of router switcher somewhere, and then go into your control room. And we build these control rooms in a particular manner because of distance from a particular, the technology. What happens when you completely distribute that? You no longer have even the footprint. We were talking about benefits before. You don't have the footprint of the space. Now, there may be some concern about, well, how far am I away from my graphics operator, different things like that. But the truth is, in broadcast, we're moving away from that anyway. As long as your comm is set up correctly, I mean, you really can start running your live production switch from your desktop.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this really changes, though, the whole concept of a broadcast engineering room, because it had gone from a massive patch bay with a bunch of waveform and vectorscope monitors to a bunch of servers in a rack. So now we've got network switches and servers, but I think this changes from an integration standpoint. This is where I think we have some of the dealers that are a little afraid right now, because this is a whole new paradigm shift. They're used to a functional cable-based system. Right. I plug a cable in, I plug another cable in, I build my system that way. Now we're talking about VMs, which is not something a lot of traditional NewTek dealers are probably doing, and Cisco routers. That's a whole new stack.
Yeah, I mean, Cisco, Mellanox, I think, Arista. I mean, there's a whole bevy of hardware out there that you have from that networking switch standpoint, but that's the beauty of it. It's this commodity off the shelf, that whole COTS idea of being able to utilize this hardware and infrastructure, but be able to do your medium production needs on that. So from an integration standpoint, yes, I've talked to many integrators and resellers because they need to. It's a different skill set. Yeah. Instead of having that SDI analyzer, now you're looking at packets going across the switch, and is that switch configuration allowing for multicast or different broadcasts? And yes, these are different things, but the skill set can be there. Where we are today is that the truth is that the infrastructure can carry in a reliable way everything that's needed to be able to do that production and to do so reliably. I think for resellers, though, they are going to have to develop new skill sets and be more comfortable in that IT environment. The beautiful thing, though, about it is that there's opportunity to provide services on that I think our resellers really can take advantage of. If you think about that from a standpoint, and I'll tell you why. One thing that I think our resellers know very well is the idea of what we call gig culture. This is something that actually President of Clearcom, was talking about. We had a panel back in Amsterdam, but he made this word and he coined it, so I can't take credit for it. But it's the idea of, okay, if you're doing production, that having the liveness, the what's going on live and needing to do that immediately and reliably and all those particular things, and nights and weekends and all of those things that come along with production. That doesn't exist in the IT space, but it does exist with the resellers and the integrators. They can know and they can understand that, and they can bring that value into an area where they may be developing a new skill set from an IT standpoint, but they have tremendous knowledge to be able to bring to bear to actually make those productions happen in that space. So it doesn't make them irrelevant. It makes them absolutely incredibly necessary.
But they do need to evolve.
Of course, but we all do. Our businesses are always evolving. Nothing ever stays the same. That's just truth of the way the world works.
It was interesting. I noticed a shift in the AV world, right? Your traditional boardroom, conference room integrator, that you'd go into meetings years ago with the communication manager, and then about 3 years ago it shifted, and you were now finding yourself talking to the IT guy. Because everything that you were going to integrate in that room talked to the network.
That's right. We've talked for a long time, right? Really from the very beginning. So this is very natural. The reselling channel is very important to that.
So if you were looking at one of the traditional VARs resellers out there, that's been selling trackers, what would your message to them be to move into this? Is it go get Cisco certifications? Is it
not necessarily, because Cisco's a great company, and they have the brand and different things in there, but that really ties you into a very particular way, you learn a programming language in that. It's really understanding the IT skills and how things operate on the network. You are moving, like in baseband, how did you learn how an SDI signal works? A lot of that is going through and you learn from people, you see analyzers, and you see that bit stream as it runs through and all the different payload data that comes across with it. Well, similar things happen in the IT space, but they're different tools. Wireshark is a free one that's fantastic. People need to know and understand that, but the truth is, and not to get too far into the weeds, you have to understand that just looking at the IT stream or the IP stream actually impacts its performance. Right. So it's a little different. For some out there, so it's the Schrodinger's cat situation. If you look at it, it changes it. But that's the trade-off that you get is the distributed workflow. This benefit of telling the story anywhere it needs to be told and adapt to the trends and the technologies of tomorrow.
Yeah, interesting. So, where's NDI right now? It's what, 3 years, 4 years into its maturity?
Actually, this marks our 3.5 year. It's a half birthdays, if you will. And at that we have a point release, what we call NDI 3.5, and we just did an announcement on that this past Thursday about NDI version 3.5 and coming in an SDK.
Nice. And what's new in that? Or anything, or is this?
So much. There's some under the hood stuff. We've added UDP transport with forward error correction, some improvements, especially for doing 4K streams, some new color enhancements, better optimizations. One of the big things, though, actually that everybody can take advantage of are the new tools. that go apart with our NDI tools. So Studio Monitor is a very powerful application that has some new features, even available for those that might even be doing game streaming at home, different things like that. So there's a tremendous amount packed all in together, and of course continued adoption far out is how paced our expectations, and we're excited to see where the future takes us on that.
Okay, and then the other one's the camera. Obviously, is out now.
The camera is out.
That's rolling.
It's not just our camera. I mean, now since we announced that and started shipping that, there's NDI and many cameras
PTZ
that we
optics,
have.
Lumens, Panasonic. Yeah, so
a lot of
list is
options now.
growing. Yeah, that's phenomenal. All right, so we've got the VM, which is just mind-boggling, and I think that's going to be super exciting as time goes on. The camera, the new NDI features, so lots happening on that side. So from a user standpoint, what would and taking away the integrator for a second, if I'm deciding, do I jump into the NDI game, do I go this, what's the cost benefit to me? What are those deciding factors to somebody deciding if they're going to build a facility? Why would I want to go NewTek at this point?
You want to go NewTek because you get flexibility. Flexibility really because, okay, let's take it back a step back as far as how, again, we design systems. Say you were putting a truck together. It used to be that you would need to put some type of investment, have that architected, put it all together, and then you need to go and do production for a certain amount of time to really get that return over, what, 10 years? You might think 8 years. We did a SD to HD transition, now to 4K. Well, what's the next thing? What do we need? Do we actually have that 16:9 interface? People are watching on their phones, it's a little bit different aspect, and maybe you're having to give multiple content out. All of that type of stuff means that you have to be able to get that return faster than ever.
Yeah.
And you can only really do that when you move into software-driven systems. And that's really the benefit that NewTek delivers or brings to the marketplace, because we're constantly developing. We're talking about this pace of innovation. We're doing that because we see that the marketplace is changing. People, when it really comes down to it, the way that we're all viewing this content is impacted the way we need to produce it. And so in order to stay up with that, well, you need to be able to be agile.
Well, it's definitely like the difference between building an appliance,
yes,
purpose-built, does one thing with minor firmware upgrades, to, as you said, software-defined workflows here that can scale, get software updates, can get new features.
It does.
Can grow.
It's not just that. I mean, it's somewhat features, it's somewhat workflow enhancements, but NewTek has a long history of doing this. We've been, if you think about systems that we were selling a few years back, we gave updates for that, sometimes not always free because, hey, there's a development there, but you have the ability to do and adjust. And this is the beautiful thing about what IP gives us, is that it's not just in the system now. It actually delivers that out to the entire ecosystem.
Which is unique for me as you guys start talking about now saying, okay, we've now built a VM instance of an IP series. One of the things we talk to people all the time is they undersize their VM. They don't give it enough horsepower, they don't give it enough RAM. But what I love about the fact of a VM is I can easily take it down for a minute, give it more RAM, give it more capacity, and bring it back up, and now it's gross. And that is pretty unique because as you guys now scale from 1080p to 4K, that VM can scale to meet the capacity and the throughput and the processing power required to grow that system.
And that's part of the benefit of the whole virtualized world. And the IT world has already figured this out.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing that quite a bit. The services that we're interfacing with. I mean, the truth is that this virtualized environment is part of our everyday life.
Yeah.
Whether it's something that's on the Amazon Web Service with Microsoft Azure or what have you, it's scaling and basically having that accordion that just expands to whatever need you have. Same thing can happen here with this virtualization. You can really adjust the hardware or even take that snapshot and move it to another VM while you do an update. So it reduces that complexity of return. It adds flexibility, and really what we're so excited about is it changes and benefits the storytelling that goes along with it.
Well, it detaches the storyteller from the room.
Exactly.
Yeah, now
exactly.
that storyteller can sit in his office and tell the story.
Yeah, but it's not just about him being able to sit, he or she being able to sit at the desk. It's that, okay, you don't have to necessarily dedicate that space, or you can run more production. See, here's the thing about it. We need more content. We need it in more places. We need it on the viewer demand, and we need to have it for less money. how can you do that except by moving into more software driven,
Right.
more general purpose hardware, but specific software for
Right.
to help you get there.
So we talk to a lot of people about the network, right? So we're pushing people to IP video, and whether it's just distributing content or doing production, the question always comes back to everybody is, well, what switch should I get? What and without saying, oh, this is better than that one, because there's a million switches out there, right? What are you telling people they need to look for in defining a network switch for this layer?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something that it really needs to be thought about when you're doing any type of system design that works in the IP space. And one of the things is that generally, if we go back to how networks and IP Ethernet was originally thought of, it was best effort, very bursty traffic, and we see that everywhere. If you have a whole bunch of emails that are going through, or data transfer of a file, it's going to basically flood that network port as much as it can, back off, and kind of do those things. With video, we need to have that constant data stream, and it has to be stable, and you can work with it. So what that means is that not every off-the-shelf switch configuration is equal for that, because it may be expecting that more spiky, bursty traffic, but you really need that dedicated stream. But what we tell our customers, or those that are calling in for that, is that, well, there are some things that you do have to think about. It may be that you do need to get prioritization to the video traffic. It may be that you logically separate that from your regular business stuff. It's kind of interesting that I have had some that, it's just like, oh, hey, this is great, and then they, just have it kind of this Wild West scenario where, they have their point of sale systems, trying to do